Okay, so we can start now. So I would like to welcome you all to today's session on enhancements that we have added to the product with Build 44 and Build 44.2. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Milka Čaušević, and I am manager for Solution Delivery Team, which includes our design and quality assurance teams. So today I'm going to, like I said, present you features that we added with Build 44 and 44.2. And I would like also, we added quite a few features, but I would also like to add that the development focus was also on the dashboard and a template 25 at the same time. So we already had a webinar session on the dashboard a couple of days ago, and we are going to have a separate webinar session on template 25 as well. So I didn't include those with this presentation. So we're going to Build 44, and our first feature today that I will present is enhancements that we added to multiple customers window. So the multiple customers window, as we all know, can be enabled through global property option, and I will also do a demo on this, so you will all see how it works. On the multiple customers window, you can add a secondary customer for the location. In some cases, it could be a landlord on the location or owner, but in many cases, it might be students that live in the same apartment. So adding another student as a secondary customer, because that student is not a primary customer on any location and doesn't exist in the system. The way how we were adding that, adding a new customer was kind of cumbersome process. So we have streamlined that process, and I will show you that also in a demo. Another enhancement was a searching by secondary customer is added also to account and cashiering window. And also at the same time, when you add a secondary customer on this window, we display a multi-customer icon on the account and cashiering window on the alert panel. Also adding a message to the secondary customer, it was not possible to be done before, so we have added that as well when you are adding a message to the primary customer on that location. So we also added that functionality. So I will go through each of these now separately. So the first enhancement is adding a new customer. And adding a new customer, like I said before, it's now streamlined. You don't have to go now to if you are entering here a new customer, and it doesn't exist in CSM, the message would pop up, this customer doesn't exist. And then you had to go on customer maintenance window, add that customer, come back to this window, search for that customer, or write it down somewhere to know what the customer ID was to be able to add that. So that process is a bit changed. So we have kind of improved and streamlined, so you can now easy way add a new customer. At the same time, with this change, we also now displaying the social security number, which you can see here. We only display last 4 digits, which is similar how we display that on the account window. So this is for better identification of that secondary customer. Searching by secondary customer also has been added within our new account search that we have on the account window. So you can now search by that secondary customer, and you can see there is a status added here as well. It says secondary. And at the same time, when we did this change, we also looked into, okay, how about if we display also if someone is moving to a new location, and then we display that status so you can see if someone is a move-in customer for that specific location, or to which location that customer is moving to, if you are searching that customer. Okay, the multi-customer button is added to the alert panel. So on this window, we did that change, adding that multi-customer icon here. You can see here multi-customer icon. We also changed the customer label here. It was saying multi-customer. Since we now have a multi-customer, we don't need that, so it will only say customer. When you're adding a first-time secondary customer, you will still need to click on this small lookup here on the account window. Adding a message to the secondary customer. A message can be assigned to the primary customer on the location, but previously there was no way to add message or associate that same message with the secondary customer on those locations. So the change we did was, when you are adding a new message for the primary customer on the location, the message will pop up warning you or telling you that there are multiple customers assigned to this location, and we wish to roll down this message to all active secondary customer for this location. So that's I will now show you how that looks like in the system, if I know where to go here. So we can go on the account window, for example, and I can use location, one of my locations. So for those of you that are maybe not using multiple customers functionality, I will just show you how you can enable that functionality. It's under Global Properties, and it's under Location and Customer tab. It says Allow Multiple Customers. When this is selected, then on the account screen, you can see then this small button here, must kind of look up. So adding a new customer now, I can choose here to either type in the new customer, and the system will pop up the message, this customer does not exist. Do you wish to add that? If you select yes, customer maintenance window will open and you can add that customer there. The other way to do that would be you can zoom here on this zoom on a customer label, and then customer maintenance will also open. So I can type in here, for example, name, and I can also add some address. And the zip code. And then I can go to the options window and add the social security number. Okay. When I save this customer, when I come back to multiple customers window, I can add just a effective date. And that's all you need to do, because all other informations are already displayed. If I expand this, you can see here the social security number is also added here to the for this secondary customer. So that would be that when you're adding this customer. When I go back to the account window, and if I redisplay, you can see now that multi-customer icon is displayed. And I can click on that, and it will also open multiple customers window. If I clear this and I select Gale, this will pop up and show me all of these customers that have the name Gale name, and we can see the secondary customer status here on this particular location that I added this customer to. I do have also another customer with the same name, which is moving to the location LOC-1, which is a moving also customer. So you can select this. Selecting this secondary customer will load this, but it will load for the primary customer on the location. So you can do a search, but when we're loading the information, it is still a primary customer on the location. But you can then, it gives you an option to go in a multi-customer window and view other informations. Adding a message to the secondary customer is I can select to go in the lookup and select any of these messages. And once I save this message and I select OK, this is what's going to pop up asking you if you would like to roll down to secondary. It really depends on the type of the message that you would like to be also associated with the secondary customer. So it's kind of your decision, would you like to do that or not. But I can, if I select yes, then this message will follow this secondary customer. And if I, for example, if I go to multi-customer, let me use customer 003. So if I go on, if I go on customer 003, this message will also pop up as well for that customer. So that's all about multi-customers window and enhancement. Does anyone has any question?
Hey, Milk, it's Frank.
Yes.
Can you open up that multi-customer button again?
Yes.
Or I'm sorry. This search. If you were to search for that multi-customer again on the account search.
Okay, so I can type in Gail, or maybe even social security number will give me that last 4 digits. Oh,
okay.
Sorry, maybe you need.
Yeah, I was looking for the search result because I think in the search doesn't it show an account balance? Yes. So my question is, the account balance on the secondary, that's not going to display the account balance for the primary amount though?
Not now. As I can see, it doesn't. I do believe this location has a balance. Let me double check. Oh, actually, I could do that from the search. But that's a good point. We can add that. Select. Yeah, I do have a balance for this location.
Yeah, so that balance for that account doesn't show up on the search for the multi-customer. Is what I was curious about.
Okay. I'm going to make a note of that. So you think that should show that balance? Would that be anyhow linked with the? I know that we are adding here.
Well, that's coming in the next build where you've got another checkbox there that's coming, which says financially responsible.
Yes.
I would say that would be linked to that, and I guess I'm diving into the customization that I've got working with you guys. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess the balance isn't necessary for all cases. It would only be necessary if they're financially responsible.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I made a note of that, Frank, so we can add that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, no problem. Any other question, guys? No? Okay, so we are going to move to another feature, which is changing a route at the connection level. So now, with the current functionality, we have an option to change the route for all connections at the location or for specific category only. Because you might have to do billing separately for let's say internet or phone charges, but you do on another route for electric, water, or other utility services. Previously, this was also showing here as a select only, so we have changed that to display as a service category, but we also added a connection. So now you can also assign a different route to the specific connection. And this is really is linked to today's world with the smart meters. I would say when you are changing your meters to the smart meters, they might be assigned to a different routes for billing purposes or for the reading purposes as well. So you might want to find an easy way to just assign that smart meter new connection to a different route. Previously, that was not really possible as much with the previous functionality. You either could have, because those would be the same service category, So there was no way to assign it to a specific connection. So if we look into that, where is my? So maybe I can show you how that works on one of the connections. For example, if I select my electric connection, I can go to change the route, and this is now a new option that we added here. So I can select, the system will in this drop down actually display all of the connections that currently exist on these locations, including inactive connections as well. So I can select even connection number 3, and I can assign the route to that. So now you can see that this is on a specific route. Like I said, most cases where this will be used is when you do all these switches, when switching to the new meter. I know many utilities are doing that, switching to smart meters, and they are assigning them to specific routes. So this is that feature. Any question about this feature? No, this is pretty straightforward, so I think. Now the next enhancement we did is the deposit interest calculation, and with partial deposit refunds. I do realize that this functionality that we had in the system when we calculate deposit interest was not even correct when it comes to partially refunded deposits, or even when you have a multiple payments applied to the same deposit, and the payments were not made on the same day, and it doesn't really happen very often. They are. So when we calculate interest, there are different options that we use on the deposit setup. So for the interest calculation, different methods. There is a compound and simple and prorate. So the interest calculation, because of all of these options that we give, is quite complicated, and that was something that we were looking into to improve that functionality for these two specific scenarios, when we have partially refunded deposit, and also when there are multiple payments applied to the same deposit. To allow partial deposit refunds, I marked that here, this checkbox. For those of you that would like to use this functionality, this checkbox then has to be enabled. So when we look into like what have we modified in this, I will also try. I mean, I know it looks like complicated, but I will try also to do one, quick demo on that, how the interest is now calculated. So there are several processes where deposit interest can be calculated, and there's a mass deposit refund process, deposit interest update, where you regularly calculating interest, and the final billing. Also, we calculate interest during final billing, which is also an option that is enabled. This is an existing option, that's nothing new. Automatic interest calculation during transfer. So we also calculate that time. So now deposit interest is calculated on the deposit balance. So previously it was always calculated, even if you had partially refunded deposit, we would calculate everything on the original deposit amount. So now we are subtracting that what was already refunded to the customer, and we calculate interest on that deposit balance, what is kind of left over. So I will do a quick try to do. Let me look into this location. I do have already here created deposit for $400 originally, but I have refunded here already. I refunded the. Click here. Refunded $100. So my balance on deposit is $300. So if I go to refund this deposit, then I will move to my deposit refund window. And I will select that just this particular location so that's more clear. We can see that the interest is calculated. I did put a pretty big interest rate just to make it simpler so we can see exactly the amounts. So if I process this, this is an existing message. We didn't change that, but we added that recently just to warn everyone that once you proceed with this process, you cannot go back. You cannot reverse because payments are created. And not only that, even if you delete that batch of payments, deposits are already moved to history. So we just warn that this is cannot be reversed. So now my report will be generated with all of the interests that were calculated. So you can see the interest was calculated because this payment was made, the first payment of $400 was made on January 15. So the only amount that we calculated was for January. And I do have monthly rates, and I know that many of you are using annual rate for interest calculation. But in my examples here, those are monthly rates. So I calculated only here for 15 days. For February, I also I calculated for full amount of $400, and here I'm calculated on $300 because I already refunded $100. So that's I wanted to show you. Before it was always calculating on $400. I will also look to show the another location that we have. I think I did create that where I have multiple payments. I have a miscellaneous charge for $300 and two payments, $100 and $200. I would like to also show you that how we calculate interest for this location because the payments are made on different dates. And also what is the change that you will see. Oops, why it's not. So we can now see, we also change the display on this window. So previously you would see for each payment here and what is the amount of interest for that payment and some of the inconsistency that we had, how it was displaying here. So we are now displaying in this example only one, and we summarize all total interest amount. So that's the change also that you will notice when you calculate interest using this deposit refund option. So if I process this payment, we will see also that we were calculating interest on separately on these two payments, on $100 and then on $300 as well. The other change that we did also, which I will show you on the account screen, and I know that many of clients were asking about that. When the payments are created for the refund of the deposit, we didn't display here, it was saying credit memo. Now we changed that also to display refund deposit because it was inconsistent on some other processes like final billing, for example. We would display refund deposit, but not from the mass deposit refund. So we have fixed that as well. Any question regarding this functionality? No? So I'm gonna move then to another feature, which is on the KVA reading type default. So those of you that provide electric service might also have meters that have both kW and KVA, like a reactive demand reading. And for those meters, there's a KVA reading type that is displayed on the connection window. So the change that we did was that now this KVA reading type is going to default from the equipment. But the first change we had to do is it was an equipment class itself, and really to make it easier for the user, so that information will default, because this KVA reading type is a drop-down list, and it's very easy to make a mistake and select wrong KVA type. And if you select the wrong KVA type, there are formulas in a billing calculation that are used depending what reading type is selected, and a different formulas applied. So it might impact the billing calculation. So that's for that reason we changed this to just make the change on equipment class first, to have selection on the KVR or KVA reading type. And then also that once equipment class is selected, when you're creating equipment, that will default also on the equipment inventory maintenance, and eventually it's going to default on the connection detail window. So that's not. Let me just actually show you it also on the. Let me see what location I can use. For this one, if we go back to equipment, and if I go to the class, I can add KVAR class, let's call it, and I can select here number of readings. One. For KVA reading type, both of these has to be, your meter or meter class has to have KVA reading and KW and KVA populated. As soon as I populate KVA reading, this is enabled. So I can select here KVAR-H, let's say, and then I can save this. Oh, I forgot to add all of the other stuff required. Okay, I'm going to do that quickly. Okay, and I'm going to save that. Now I can create my equipment. And select the class that I just created. And we see that this is defaulting here. And I'll add some dummy serial number. And save this. If I go back and I install that on some of the locations, let's say I add a new service to this location. And I can install this meter. Oops, doesn't exist. Maybe I typed in something wrongly. We can see that KVAR-H is defaulting here, but you can change that still even on this window. There's no restriction. Okay, so this is that's defaulting KVAR KVA reading type. Any question regarding this feature? And just to let you know also, if you change that at the equipment, change to some other type, it's not going to override what is already saved on the connection. So our next feature is former versus current customer default from the smart list. So previously opening the account window from the smart list would always open that account for the current customer on the location, even in the smart list. And I know many of you are using smart lists, and sometimes in your smart list you have former customers on the location. And when you click the Go To option to go to the account window, it would always open for the primary customer. Because you are already using smart lists and you connect to the account window through the go-to option, we decided to leave that, and that's really using this procedure open account form, and we decided to add one more of open account form by location customer, and this will open that account form for the former customer on the location that exists on that in the smart list. So if I go back here and I look into my smart list, and I do have one for, let's say, the simple one for spa overdue payments, and if I check the modify just to show you where is that, I have linked some tables like collection payment arrangements detail and header table. And if I go to this option and added that, you can see that I selected for go to, and if I select edit this, I can select table. That's displaying the table. But there is there you can see here 2 parameters for this procedure. And the previous one is open account form, and this one has only 1 parameter. And that was the reason why we were always opening account window just for the primary customer. Now, instead of you modifying all of your existing smart lists, if you're creating a new one, you can now use this new procedure to open account window for using both parameters. So if I go back and choose, this is my former customer on the location, I go back and I open account screen, you can see that it is opening for the former customer on the location. So now let's move to the next one, Invoice Cloud Biller File Validation. For those of you that are using Invoice Cloud integration, and we know that Biller File contains the statements information that is passed to Invoice Cloud, and then Invoice Cloud process those and allow the customers who signed on to Invoice Cloud to do payments online, to do e-bills notification, or do auto-pays. So how this integration worked, when we create the biller file that you can, on scheduled basis pass to Invoice Cloud, we do validation on these statements. So if system found that any of these statements has an error, it would then stop all file and nothing would be passed to Invoice Cloud. So we have changed this integration. So now the validation is done at the statement level. So statements that fail in the validation are flagged with an error, and an email is sent to the administrator with all of the details why the statements failed. But rest of the statements will be passed to Invoice Cloud, so that they can continue with that. So for this feature, you will have to have a new version of Invoice Cloud, the latest version, and I added here also on the notes that you can download that from the Cogsdale, from our FTP site.
Hey, Milka, we lost the presentation on our side over here in Griffin. Is anybody else having that issue?
No, I'm good.
Can you try to log in again?
Yeah, we will. It just said that it was waiting for the presenter to restart sharing, so I wasn't sure if it was on us or not. We'll re-log in.
Yeah. If everyone else, sees, that means probably it's on your side, yeah. Any question about Invoice Cloud Biller File Validation? No? So the payment import sorting is the next feature. So for this sorting functionality, and many of you are importing payments using our import payment window to import payments into CSM, such as the logbox payments. And when payments are brought into CSM using payment import functionality, then you can view those payments that you imported through the review imported payments window. So this window now is we allow you to sort the results, what you imported, for any of these columns that I have marked here. And that's the let me try to close the smart list, and we will go to payment import functionality. So if I type in the badge and select one of the formats that I have already created, the format really, I don't know, you have a lot of options here how you create the import file, the format. In my example, I have just the location, customer, payment amount, and the date. And I have the date of my payments, and you can select also payment origin on this window. So if I import these payments, you can see here that this is the window that I was showing you on the slide, review imported payment. So you can now sort by the location, you can sort by the customer. Documents, I don't have any here because I didn't probably choose that option in my format. In the amounts, I believe you will be mostly interested into the amounts. If anything is you can see that I made it purposely these two very high payments. So this is something that I would like to review and see why they are so big payments. So this is makes your life a little bit easier, that you can sort this and easily find if anything is wrong. So in addition to that, I think all import edit list also is adjusted. So you can see that I think that we changed also location and customer name. And also these are sorted by the way how they are on the window as well, if you need to review that list. Okay. It's not moving. And this is the report that I was showing you. Collection processing selection. So the collection processing selection, the collection processing window might contain large number of records that when you processing notices. And the change that we did and moving this process button on the left side is because really to avoid mistakes. In many cases could happen because this process button was on the right side of the window, an error was on the other side. So we switched them. And the reason for that is because when it was on the right side, it was easy to make a mistake if you want to exclude any customer from processing, and you want to process just for a single customer, then it's easy to make a mistake and select the wrong record. Now, when it is really close to the location, customer can clearly see for which customer you are selecting to process and process the collection notices. So, and we also switched customer and location columns. So that's consistent with all other windows, how we have these columns sorted. So, and that's the change we did. Any question? Pretty straightforward, I believe, what we did. And export to collection agency. The export to collection agency process from write-off window is modified. So we added a base stored procedure when you're exporting. We have received many support questions like, okay, I clicked export button, but nothing happens. And we would always, the response was, oh, you need to have a custom code. And then another response would be, oh, shouldn't you have a base procedure there? So yes, we should, and we have added that. So this new base procedure that we added, it is based on the file structure that was provided by JTS collection agency, but you can definitely modify that or modify the number of record. So you still can use a custom. If you want to customize this base procedure, you can do so, because if the system will still check if the custom procedure exists, and it will call that then custom procedure to export. So similar to what I did before, we can go and embed that credit, and if I select export to collection agency, if you have that set up, and if you don't use this functionality, this setup is on to export to collection agencies, a third-party collections, and you can set up collection agencies with all the other information that is used to miscellaneous charge type and credit note and days past due and the file, the export file, and all of that. So I just wanted to show you that quickly. So if we go back to here, we can, yeah, we'll change this. Sure. I don't want to bring more. I don't know. I will try to bring some more records, but I will select for both and process. So I did get probably some errors as well, but I did include all what I have in my sample data. So if I mark them to process, I can select export. And I do have already some file there, but it's going to override. So the export is completed. I do have some errors here, maybe some locations on budget and that, but we can look into that export file. It's under download, collection agency. So you can see what we export in this. A lot of information. So like I said, if you would like to use your custom version, you can do so. But this is now the base procedure that we added to create this export file.
Is it possible to export to more than one agency?
You can create, but you will still have to select one here. You can have multiple, yes. But you have to set them up as I showed you here on this collection agency setup. I have only one, but you can have as many as you want. You can make one default that will default on this window. That's why when I select, let me go back. No, this one will default. But if you have multiple, it will show, all of them will show here in the drop down, and you can select. Is that answers your question?
Yes, we download to our debt set-off and agency for the state, and also to online collections. So we've wondered, one requires, one accepts a file, the other one requires us to go into software and download it. And we're just trying to figure out how to make that happen all in one fell swoop, so we don't have to keep going in and, doing it twice.
Yeah, you can check if this would work for you to have multiple here, and you can change the file path when you select another agency. All other information will adjust to that agency here, whatever you have on the setup. So, but something for you to look into. Any other question? So now that was the last feature for Build 44, and Build 44.2, the feature that we added, we normally Build 44 and dot some other numbers, 1, 2, or 3. Those are mostly maintenance releases, and normally we would not add there any enhancements, but this time we have added this option to calculate penalties by location. So you can now calculate penalties by location, and we have added that feature because we were working on another implementation for a client that is using property taxes, and they require to have another type of also calculation, and they have I wanted to add this also to present to you, even though you probably might not use this, but just to be aware what this checkbox on the penalty setup means. And it says enable annual penalty proration. So when you see this checkbox, if you are not using, any of the type of proration, then you don't need to select that. Leave it non-selected. But if it is selected, the penalty is calculated using amount times penalty percentage, which is our current calculation. As you see here, about penalties are calculate amount times penalty percentage. But for this, when this checkbox is selected, we also add this proration. So the number of days since the document is past due, comparing to the user date or the date when you calculate penalties. So we calculate number from the due date to the penalty processing date, and that number of days is divided by the number of days in a year, which like with 365 days. And that factor is also then multiplied and included into that calculation. But let me go back to the calculation of penalties. And on the penalties preparation window, if I select, let me see, can select penalty date, let's see, penalty, and I can calculate this now by the location, and you can now type in location here. Oops, I don't know why I didn't get any. Oh, I didn't change my dates. So these same rules as we have before, you have to also make sure always when you calculate penalties that the due date from and due date to is set. So that's why probably I didn't get any calculation. I don't know, that's not reason yet as well. Kind of weird. Let me check that location. Oh, I did already. Let me remove. That's why nothing is calculated, because I think I did write off, and I need to remove some of these. I don't know if this one was. Let me check if there's anything else. Probably not. So on this account that I wanted to use, I believe now if I redisplay, okay, now I have balances. I will go back to my penalty preparation window and calculate again. So I did receive penalties here. So with the penalty calculation, and before we go further, let me just go back to one more slide here. There are few changes that we also did to the penalty calculation with this Build 44.2 based on some feedback, because we did a lot of changes to penalties in Build 43. And now we received some feedback like when you guys started to use that. So when we, if there are multiple service types associated with one penalty document, then the service types on the account window is set to blank. That's one change, because what we were doing, we were assigning one of the first kind of service type that we had in this, which was really kind of wrong, because it was indicating that this penalty is only calculated for that service type, when it's really not. It's calculated for multiple service types. So we changed that to blank. And a penalty setup, if this combination is periodic, compound, and bill services separately, then we create one penalty document in this combination. But this is bill services separately. We do have a few customers that are using this option. So if I go back here, you can see, because I have a different setup here, probably maybe even one time, penalties, I calculated a few penalty documents. If I go and refresh my window, I can see I created like 3 penalty documents. I can zoom here and view what are the service types included in that. And I think I have one that has multiple. Here I have gas, sewer, and water. And we group those based on the penalty ID that is associated, that you have set up and assigned to the service type. And if you are all of these service types, they have the same penalty ID. In my example, it's the default payment, we call it. So I wanted also to take this opportunity to receive some of your feedback, because I wanted to change this to always create one penalty document. So to be consistent, and how much it would impact you if we do that change.
Milka, from our standpoint in Jamestown, because we're billed services separately and we have to report things on an individual service basis, we prefer the separate penalty document by service type.
By service type. But you see, we already changed that kind of here, that you have included. We have included multiple. But do you have a separate penalty
Right,
ID?
but from a cashiering standpoint, though, we can pick and choose which documents we're sending to a payment arrangement, or which document the customer's paying based on the time of the year. Because if it's electric, then with heat, with prepayments on our heat authorization, it's better to have them split out into separate documents.
Okay. And with Griffin, the same.
Okay, we group them currently by the penalty ID. So I can leave that. That's not a problem at all. I can leave that functionality. Like I said before,
okay, all right. So I have a different penalty ID set up for each service.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So that's still okay then. So that'll still create a separate penalty document for each service type then, or for each service category.
Yes, for category. If you do that way, yes, it will. That's the current functionality. Like I said, all of these if you look into this one, it has penalty IDs, refuse in this case. I don't know why we call all of this way, but anyway, it is a refuse only service type that has that penalty ID. Like I said, on this example, we have water, we have default payment, but all of these service types have that same penalty ID assigned. So we group by penalty ID.
Okay.
So that would work. So I just wanted to get this feedback. So I am fine with that. I can leave this as we have now. So the only combination that will currently create one penalty document, even if you have a different penalty IDs, would be this one: periodic, compound, and bill services separately. And this was working like that even before all of the changes.
So you're saying that if penalty setup is periodic and compound and bill services separately, it creates one document?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I need to double check my setup then, because we're bill services separately, and we're creating an individual one. But if the penalty ID is different, it's still going to create one per ID.
Yes, it will. And we have that feedback. I believe it was Norwich. They have this combination, and this was how it was working with Build 39. I go way back to Build 39 to test it, to see how it was working.
Yeah,
before.
we're on Build 42 right now, and we're still creating separate documents. So I think we're probably fine.
It should be fine. You might not use this, or either you don't use compound option, or or maybe you're using one-time penalties.
Yeah, I need to double check that and see what our setting is.
Okay. That really concludes this presentation today. Anyone has any more questions?
Milka, it's O'Neill.
Yes.
So we have a particular situation where we need to do both. That is one time and periodic on in one database, right? Would this affect that sort of scenario?
This will not, I mean, when it comes to the calculation, it is not going to impact that. What you are looking for is you have different setup because you're using different companies in one database, basically. And we are setting, I did talk to Ryan and he's working on that design, and we will have an option on user's preference for you. Depending on the user, then we will switch up using one-time or periodic penalties. But when it comes to calculation, the calculation will remain same. Although you have an older build, so whatever is done, that will not impact it. The calculation will remain same for you.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no changes. But if you once you upgrade, if you are upgrading to a newer build, this is build 44, so all of these changes on penalties we implemented with build 43. We kind of combined into one window now, and we kind of added more options that you can select multiple routes and zones when you're calculating penalties. So that's the change that we did with build 43, which you don't have with the build that you are using. So whatever changes we will doing now, but for different user preference setup, that will be in the build that you are using.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No problem. So that's all for today. I will, like I said at the beginning, I will be setting up a presentation on template 25, and I hope you will be able to attend. So we did release first version of that, first phase. There's a lot to be done, and I really would love to receive your feedback on that, like what are next steps and what we need to add to template 25. So I will schedule that presentation either next week or week after. So I will let you guys know. So thank you for attending today, and have a good day.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Mika.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Milka, will you be sending the copy of this video?
This video, I can upload that only on FTP. This is going to be probably big in the size, so it will be difficult to send through email or something. But I will put for now an FTP. But we are also working on publishing our customer portal, and that's coming soon. So all of these videos, webinars, releases, and everything will be there as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so we will do it. That's another presentation that we will do quite soon for you guys as well.
Thanks a lot. You have a great one.
Thank you, guys. Bye.